look, of course this list is going to change. I wake up tomorrow and go, oh, I can't believe I didn't mention that guy. This is the problem when you do best wrestlers ever lists and you're stupid, somebody's going to slip through the cracks. But I do have some honorable mentions, and some of these are going to surprise you, but that's why I want to remind you these are my favorite wrestlers, mostly due to nostalgia and the memories they have given me. However, on that list is John Cena, Randy Orton, Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels, Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, The Rock, Miro, Roddy Piper, CM Punk, and MJF. And I've tried to be as mixed as I can here, so we've got some people from the past, but we've got some new wrestlers too. Everyone in the comments goes, you're such an old man, which is depressingly true. Let's go. Number 10, Cody Rhodes. And straight away everyone's like, how dare you say this, Simon? But it comes down to two things. One, I find his journey so damn inspirational, given that he left WWE in 2016, quite literally changed the wrestling business, and then came back to WWE in 2022 or wherever it was. He was also a huge reason AEW came to be, and I think that's massively important too. But also when he was doing his indie run, I got to meet him, and he's just such a nice guy. Also in 2024, when I do go back and watch some of his matches, like WrestleMania 40, and even when he returned at WrestleMania 38, both of which I was lucky to be live to, it just made me feel so good to witness this in those moments. You can't ignore that, right? I get it. People go, oh, it doesn't make any sense. Well, it makes sense to me, damn it. And now I look forward to all his other matches too. He has hooked me emotionally. And that is the point of professional wrestling. Number 9, Repo Man. Now, if you do watch any of my stuff, you know the reason I love Repo Man so much is because when I was basically a fetus and I was learning about sports entertainment, he taught me, oh man, you can do whatever you want in this crazy world, and as long as everybody agrees to it, there's no rules. That basically taught me about gimmicks, and it made me happy. But I am going to cheat here, and I do cheat a lot through this list, so you're just going to have to deal with it. But I want to throw Kenny Omega in there as well, because honestly, in terms of watching wrestling as an adult male, I don't think I've seen anyone have consistently the kind of matches that Kenny does. I also think he approaches wrestling in a very unique way. And when he does go full Kenny Omega, I personally watch him and just go, I don't think anybody else can actually go full Kenny Omega apart from Kenny Omega, because he's made this ship his own. I'm also a big fan of his promo style because once again, I think Kenny has just made it his own. And when he is talking, I want to listen. Like, he's not like a 1980s guy going, brother, I'm going to come and get you. And he's like a Stone Cold Steve Austin guy where I think he's going to kick somebody's ass. But when he does talk, like I say, I want to hear it in my earring holes. It's not the thing, I shouldn't have said that. So yeah, I just love his matches and I love the way he breaks wrestling down. And as for Repo Man, well, you're never going to take that one away from me. Because once again, I just repeat what I said a few minutes ago. That damn gimmick makes me so damn happy. Number 8, Randy Savage. So when I was indeed growing up watching professional wrestling, obviously people would sit there and pick and choose their wrestlers. And mine was always the Macho Man Randy Savage. At least when you're talking about those over-the-top characters from the late 80s. Now, I didn't really fall in love with Randy Savage until the early 90s, then very sadly soon after he was becoming a commentator, but thanks to the passage of time, we can go back in the past, and this guy was just ahead of the game in more ways than one. Because his matches could be here in 2024 and nobody would blink an eye. He was also one of these guys who would go up to his opponent and say, yep, I've read all the moves down, and that's exactly what we are gonna do. Plus, look at his gimmick and his over-the-top personality. I mean, that's one of the reasons people still think about him today, because when he walks to the ring, he just has so many tassels, and he has so many colors. How can you not look at him and go, man, dude, you look great? You also have that distinctive voice, and he has so many under-the-radar gems. Like, nobody talks about this. Before he did arrive in the WWF, everybody was like, oh my gosh, Macho Man Randy Savage is absolutely brilliant. And given the time, the only major criticism was, well, he could be a little bit bigger. And even before then, he was like a super-duper-whooper good baseball player. So Randy Savage could do it all. Once again, it comes down to memories, man. Do you remember when he pretended to retire at WrestleMania? Then he came back and he had all the stuff with Miss Elizabeth. I even remember SummerSlam when you had the wedding. Jake Roberts and The Undertaker destroyed him with a snake. That sounds absolutely terrible, but I liked it, man, and I liked him. Number 7, Bryan Danielson. Because simply put, if you do want to sit down and start having a debate about who is the greatest in-ring worker ever, if you do not mention Bryan Danielson's name, Well, I just think you're being a little bit of a dick. Because do not forget, at its core, wrestling is meant to be a simulated fight. Bryan Danielson is so good at making you think that he is in a scrap, and also his matches never gets boring. He has been doing it for 25, maybe even 30 years, and he always just comes up with a way to make things feel so damn fresh. That's why when he did have that match with Kenny Omega, it was so good. It was like two wrestling geniuses' minds going to war. He also proved everybody wrong because, again, before he got to WWE, it was like, oh, Bryan Danielson can't cut promos. And as I am recording this video, what did he do a few weeks ago on Dynamite in Wales? He got the microphone, he just screamed, I am the flubbing best wrestler in the world, and you bought into every single word. That's what a promo is meant to be, to get you hyped up for the damn match. Success. He's also given us so many moments over the years, including All In 2024 and WrestleMania 30, and every single company he has entered, he has got to the top. Ring of Honor, WWE, AEW, and that isn't a fluke, my friends. It's because he's one of these guys that came along and thankfully found professional wrestling. He was always going to be at the tippity top of it. Because yeah, I'm repeating myself once more, but he just approaches it in such a unique way. I flipping love the guy. Number 6, Kevin Owens. All right, so we finally get to one that people always yell at me all the time about on social media, but I don't care. If we are going to talk about modern day pro wrestlers, and again, I wanted to slip some of those into this list, Kevin Owens could be number 1, even though that made no sense. Like the Anchorman quote, but I don't care. Because he just does every single thing that I want from wrestling. Like, he can have a good match with anyone. I've never seen Kevin Owens have a bad match. He can be funny, he can be serious, and he can go full goofy wrestling for life when he is cutting promos. Do you remember all that stuff he did with Chris Jericho back in 2016? That was laugh out loud funny. And every now and then that gif of him taking the mick out of Enzo Amore pops up on my feed when he's on the ring apron. It just reminds me, damn it, Kevin Owens, you're brilliant. Plus, he does all the wrestling trope stuff like, oh, you can't come out here because nobody said your name. It's going to make me sound like a freak. It's going to make me sound really weird. But this is kind of how I would want to be if I made it to WWE. I do wrestle, I'm just not as good as him. He too also has a wonderful story because, again, when he was in Ring of Honor and the like, there were people going, he'll never make it to WWE, but the cream always rises to the crop. I'm pretty sure it was William Regal that saw this, and he knew what he was doing. And honestly, just sit here right now, and apart from that United States title run, where he was Mr. America or whatever it was, Kevin Owens has never dropped the ball, and even when he is given crap, he sits down there and he works it through his mind and he comes out with something good. It's why it was such a joy when he was able to get his double WrestleMania main events, one against Stone Cold Steve Austin and the other with his best friend Sami Zayn as they took on the Usos. Once again, I was just gleefully having a good time with this, and it's because I respect and look up to the man so much. He also seems like a very nice individual. If somebody put me on some weird desert island and said, pick only a few wrestlers that you're able to watch now you are here, one of them would be Kevin Owens. That's why he gets in. Number 5, Kurt Angle. Mostly because he's like a fine wine, and he just gets better with age. Because seriously, there was nothing that Kurt Angle couldn't do. Like, one of the reasons he was able to be one of the funniest guys outside of the ring is because when he was in the ring, he was such a killer and he was so crazy. Nobody cared that he was goofing off backstage, because when it came down time to being serious, there was nobody damn better. He also obviously adapted to wrestling so damn fast and had the best rookie year in history. When you go back and watch all of his matches now in WWE and TNA, and even when he headed off to Japan, the man is just an absolute beast. Like, even when he was doing that independent run before he went to WWE, eventually retired, you still see glimpses of this. And go and read every single article when he did take on Brock Lesnar in that 1-hour Iron Man match on SmackDown. Every report was like, oh my gosh, it's brilliant, 5-star match. Brock, he was getting a little bit tired towards the end, but Kurt Angle never stopped. I also genuinely don't think he ever had a bad match, and some of his classics, like Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, are just all time. And like I say, they will never age because he is too good at professional wrestling, and he took bits of the old, and he brought in bits of the new, even though he didn't know they were bits of the new. So yeah, I don't think, even in 100 years, I would take Kurt Angle off this list. Genuinely one of the best wrestlers of all time. Number 4, Eddie Guerrero. Now this one, I actually think speaks volumes, because there was a time, and again, I was just a young kid, I didn't know what was going on, where I didn't really get Eddie Guerrero. I remember having a conversation with my friend about this. It just goes to show that I am an absolute moron. Much like other people we have talked about, though, you can't hold talent down. As soon as he did find his way in WWE and he got comfortable, and you went back and watched all the great stuff he was doing in WCW, you cannot ignore it, you cannot escape it. Eddie Guerrero is just absolutely brilliant, especially when it comes to his character. Like, we all know he could go in the ring, and he was one of the best, but the way that he was when he was a heel, or the way that he was when he was a babyface, he could go through every single emotion and get you right in the feels. The promo that he cut against Brock Lesnar before he did beat him for the World Championship at No Way Out popped up on my social feed the other day. And honestly, when he is talking about addiction and everything he's been through and getting his family back, even in 2024 I had a tear in my eye, because it's just such good stuff. And then a week later, what is he doing? He's having some kind of match where he's throwing chairs at people and pretending to be knocked out. If there was a tick box list about all the things that you should do in professional wrestling, you would tick every single one from Eddie and you'd give him an A-star. And of course, it's always sad when somebody passes away too early, but the absolute outpouring of emotion summed up the love that everybody had for Guerrero. Wrestling today would be better if he was still around. So yeah, he's absolutely one of the GOATs. As far as I'm concerned, he's even pretty close to being on that damn Mount Rushmore. Number 3, Triple H and Sting. I know, I'm cheating again, but these two guys have to get in there because they inspired me on a personal level. So what am I meant to do? Now, Triple H is always a contentious pick because people want to go, oh, what about the Reign of Terror? I don't care about no Reign of Terror. When I was watching Triple H during that time, from 1999 to say 2004, for starters, he had the greatest physique I'd ever seen in my life, to the point I went to the gym. That is some serious inspiration. So how can I not put him on here? I also thought he was the most badass, coolest dude on the planet. And once again, sometimes wrestling is more about than just the wrestling, as stupid as that may sound, but also go back and watch him in 2000 and 2001. Don't you come into my house and tell me he wasn't the best heel on the planet. I suppose I started to watch professional wrestling because everybody did look like superheroes or comic book characters, and no one did that better than Triple H. Which is kind of the same for Sting. Do you know one of the reasons I started to flick channels during the Monday Night War? It's because he did become the Crow, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is just something else entirely. Obviously, this is tripled in 2024 because everything AEW did with his retirement run just sent me crazy. And now, when he does turn up on my screen, I just cheer like a nuts person, like I was at All In 2024. And when he made his surprise return to help Darby Allin, it honestly felt like a bucket list moment. I got to see Sting properly live. I have a terrible Triple H story as well that does sum this up, because I went to Earl's Court in 2008, which doesn't even exist anymore, to watch a Monday Night Raw. Somehow, I got front row tickets, and Triple H was having a promo off with John Cena, and when Hunter did get mad, he whipped his top off, you see me going, yeah. Now, I wasn't cheering that specifically, but it still makes me laugh. And I know these two had that match at WrestleMania 33, and I'll be the first to tell you Triple H winning that was totally stupid, but we do go through their entire careers. What can I say? I'm just a mega fan of both of them. Number 2, Steve Austin. So we may as well tie this to number 1 as well, which is Bret the Hitman Hart, but the whole point is, it was these two guys that cemented my love for professional wrestling, and given that I'm an old man now and I'm still talking about it for my job, well, I gotta give them both props. But the Hitman was the first person I ever saw as I was flicking channels, and for some reason he just captivated me. So for a good 2 years, my gosh, I was just a Bret Hart guy. And you can quadruple that in 2024, because when you go through his matches now, I mean, he's like the first Bryan Danielson, which is the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. But if you want to believe that pro wrestling is real, you've got to go watching some Bret Hart. We all know what happened in 1997, though, when he did go to WCW and they didn't know what to do with him. And who rose up during that year? It was Steve Austin. So this was just like a changing of the guard internally for me. So I left Bret Hart and I moved on to the Rattlesnake. And then all of a sudden, he was just the ultimate badass. So I basically got all these different sides of pro wrestling and decided, you know what? Rubber stamp it, I'm good. I also have similar stories about both these guys, and that's why they are 1 and 2, and I'll start with Steve Austin, because again, I did put him in second place, and it is the SummerSlam of 1998 when he was taking on The Undertaker. Now, years later, I found that nobody liked the build, and nobody likes this match, including Austin, because he gets knocked out during the thing. But I was so into it, and I was so worried that the dead man was going to defeat him for the WWF title, I pulled a sickie from school. Then my mum came in and saw me jumping around when Steve had hit the stunner and got the win, so I got in a lot of trouble, but I had to see the guy. It was the same for Bret Hart too when we got to SummerSlam 1997 and he was taking on The Undertaker again with Shawn Michaels as the guest referee. And when you got that finish, I had a bona fide meltdown. I also remember, I think it was 1996 when the WWF once again came to the UK, and I was watching One Night Only, or whatever it was called, on pay-per-view, and I was like, well, everyone's going to cheer Bret Hart because he's meant to be a babyface over here and a heel in America, and nobody cheered him enough. I was legitimately annoyed with my countrymen or my brethren, whatever the hell you want to call them. You did not give enough respect to the Hitman. So when you get to those levels, you just know that you've totally been taken away by the fairies. And I'll just sum it up by saying this. I could watch wrestling for another 70 years, and nobody is ever going to take their place. And of course, nostalgia plays a part in that, but also, they just think they were the very, very best. And I've just realized as well, I should have thrown Goldberg into the honorable mentions, because again, I was obsessed with that guy when I was a kid. And there would be people like Scott Hall as well. So this is not a definitive list or anything like that. And essentially, let's say this goes live on the 2nd of November 2024. It should basically be called These Are the Wrestlers That Simon Likes Today. But you get the deal, my friends. It's half the fun. Now, of course, share your lists below, and again, make them fun. Don't make them boring, although you should be talking about people like Bruno Sammartino and Harley Race, who I've also ignored. So I'm a terrible person. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, but otherwise, just have lovely days, my friends. See you soon.